Have you been hanging out with Meghan and Harry since
No.
they've been in California?
No, I don't know them.
Prove something. To prove that you're enough. You have to prove that you're pretty enough. You have to prove that you're smart enough. You prove that you're a good wife or a good friend. And I was like, I am just so done.
You think you know Meghan Markle? But what I'm about to reveal will change everything. Her Netflix comeback was supposed to be a warm, soft-focus love letter to domestic bliss.
Your hard life, and you're so privileged. It's just so weird.
Starring Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, each episode bathed in filtered sunlight, pastel aesthetics, and perfectly staged kitchen shots that screamed relatable royalty. But the reality? It's become one of the most embarrassing PR implosions of her entire career.
They're ridiculous after that. They want it both ways. You know, you can't be, these people were so mean to us and poor us, and we don't want all this attention, and then let me write a book about how much we don't want attention.
And here's the kicker. This time, it's not the tabloids coming for her. It's people who used to root for her. It's respected comedians, fellow celebrities, and millions of former fans asking the same brutal question, what happened to Meghan Markle? Because With Love, Meghan wasn't just a flop. It was a cultural backlash in real time. And leading the charge, none other than Bill Maher, who didn't just mock the show, he obliterated it.
Meghan Markle complains that nobody has complained about her for a while.
His savage roast has gone viral for a reason, because once he peeled back the beige aesthetic, the Pinterest perfect meals, and the awkwardly curated charm, what was left wasn't authenticity, it was artifice. And once you see what he saw, you'll never be able to look at Meghan's soft rebrand the same way again. At first glance, the show looks like every influencer's dream. Mood lighting, fruit parfaits, rustic table decor, and Meghan laughing softly in a linen apron while slicing cucumbers like she's never known conflict. It's a fantasy, one where Montecito life is all beeswax candles and curated kindness, but actually scratch that. Because beneath that serene veneer is something far more calculated, and audiences felt it. It didn't read as genuine, it read as Meghan Markle playing Meghan Markle, with a production crew and a very clear agenda. That's not even the craziest part, because what really blew this thing up wasn't the show itself, it was the reaction. And I don't just mean a few bad reviews, I mean a full-blown cultural roast.
When was the last time you were surprised and delighted?
Last night, and also this morning, but last night when I went back to my hotel.
Comedians, celebrities, even lifestyle influencers, all piling on, and right at the center of it, Bill Maher. His takedown wasn't just funny, it was forensic. His parody of Meghan wasn't some throwaway jab, it was a mirror, a devastating one. He didn't just mock her fake kitchens or overly styled snacks, he tore through the entire illusion. Bill didn't need a costume, he just channeled the version of Meghan the world now sees, an overproduced image, desperate to be seen as wholesome when all the seams are showing. He mimicked her smile that doesn't reach the eyes, her over-articulated voice, her relentless attempts to elevate the ordinary while staying 6 feet above it. The audience howled, but beneath the laughter was something more cutting, recognition. Because they weren't just laughing at Meghan, they were realizing she wasn't joking. And it gets worse.
Quite right, not that we're biased. Harry said in his BBC interview that he was forced to step away from royal duty due to security concerns. I thought Harry and Meghan had decided to leave royal duty before the security assessment that downgraded their security coverage occurred. Can you help me understand?
The backlash didn't stop with Bill's viral segment. Social media exploded, TikTok creators stitched it with their own roasts. Instagram accounts that once praised Meghan for breaking royal norms were now dissecting her jam recipes and calling her the Duchess of Delusion. And then the reviews dropped. Rotten Tomatoes hit it with 28%. The Guardian called it gormless lifestyle filler. The Telegraph gave it 2 stars and compared it to watching an expensive nap. And here's where it gets really messy. The critics weren't mincing words, but what truly blindsided everyone was Netflix's response. Instead of pulling back or quietly letting the project fade into the algorithm, they announced a second season. That's right, more pastel tablecloths, more unsalted pasta, and more of Meghan hosting dinner parties where the food looks untouched and the conversations feel rehearsed. But here's the twist. That second season, it was already filmed. Industry insiders say it was shot back-to-back with season 1, just in case the original launch flopped. So instead of a bold renewal, this is starting to look like damage control disguised as confidence. And damage control might be the perfect phrase for what followed, because Meghan's show wasn't just out of touch, it was a branding disaster. One that didn't just hurt her reputation, but began to infect everything around it. Her lifestyle brand, her public image, even her marriage, all started to feel like accessories to the illusion. And when Bill Maher delivered his most brutal line, "Who wants to watch Meghan Markle bake a pie?" the internet didn't just laugh, it agreed.
Have you been hanging out with Meghan and Harry since
No.
they've been in California?
No, I don't know them.
Suddenly, Meghan's attempt to build a brand around warmth and homemaking felt like a cold product rollout from a woman who's never actually made her own breakfast. Hold on, it gets worse. One of the most damning moments came when Meghan had comedian Mindy Kaling as a guest. The two sat at a table discussing life, motherhood, and, strangely, Jack in the Box. Mindy mentioned it offhandedly, but Meghan, true to form, turned it into a branding opportunity. "You know I'm Sussex now," she said, correcting the tone as if fast food jokes didn't align with her Duchess status. It wasn't charming, it was jarring, like a record scratch in the middle of a lullaby.
Jack in the Box because my mom loved their tacos.
I don't think anyone in the world knows that Meghan Markle has eaten Jack in the Box
It's
and
so
loves
funny too that you keep saying Meghan Markle. You know I'm Sussex now.
And that tiny moment went viral for all the wrong reasons, because it showed us the truth. Meghan's obsession with her title has become a full-blown identity crutch. And remember how Bill Maher roasted her for playing humble while demanding a crown? That's exactly the contradiction audiences started to feel. The show promised relatability, but delivered royalty cosplay. A woman who cut ties with her husband's entire royal family, now telling us how to build a loving, warm home? That's not inspiring, that's ironic. And even Meghan's most loyal defenders had trouble justifying the tone. It wasn't that she tried something new, it was that she tried to sell it as truth when it looked more like strategy. But wait, there's a twist. Meghan's team tried to pivot. They rebranded her lifestyle line, dropping American Riviera Orchard and replacing it with As Ever. A sleek, minimal logo, a new aesthetic, a fresh attempt at relatability. But fans were left confused. What exactly is she selling now? Is this about jam jars or emotional healing, honey or high fashion? And just when the internet began to calm down, Pamela Anderson entered the chat. Yup, Pamela. Because apparently Meghan's With Love wasn't just tone deaf. It was eerily similar to Pamela Anderson's own cooking show concept, Cooking with Love. The similarities weren't subtle. The aesthetic, the soft-spoken narration, the elevated basics motto, even the trailer voiceovers had overlapping phrases. Pamela, I want to take it to another level. Meghan, I like to elevate the common. Side by side, the trailers looked less like coincidence and more like a copy-paste job with a royal filter. And the internet? Oh, they noticed. Twitter threads went viral comparing every detail, from font choices to fruit bowl placements. YouTube creators did shot-by-shot breakdowns, pointing out how Meghan's entire show looked like a slightly more expensive version of Pamela's original vision. And the cherry on top, Meghan's signature recipe on the show, a ladybug caprese bruschetta, turned out to be lifted from an old lifestyle magazine spread. Not inspired by, not adapted from, lifted. Same layout, same garnishing, same cute but classy tagline. This wasn't just sloppy, it was catastrophic for a brand that sells originality. One TikTok user joked, Meghan didn't cook up a show, she reheated Pinterest. Another called the show Retro Reheat in Beige. Even the DIY centerpieces, once praised by lifestyle bloggers, were revealed to be recycled ideas from a decade-old YouTube crafting channel. Meghan had accidentally proven her critics right. She wasn't offering a new take on domestic living, she was offering a glossy rerun of someone else's authenticity. And here's where it gets really messy. Bill Maher returned to the topic during a follow-up segment on his podcast. He played a clip from the show, Meghan offering guests cellophane-wrapped almonds, and deadpanned, "This isn't hospitality, it's hostage negotiation with a Pinterest account." The crowd lost it, and so did the internet. Reaction videos poured in, dissecting every awkward moment in the show. Guests pretending to enjoy dry snacks, Meghan casually placing already opened jam jars on the table like priceless artifacts, a glam squad lurking just off camera while she chopped a single cucumber. And then, silence. Meghan's team went dark. No statements, no defense, no clarification, which only made things worse, because in Hollywood, silence speaks volumes. And viewers, critics, even her own former supporters were left with one overwhelming impression. Meghan Markle wasn't in control of her narrative anymore. She was trying to manage the damage while the cracks in her brand kept spreading. And you probably think this is where the story ends. You're wrong. Because just when it looked like things couldn't unravel further, more voices joined the chorus. And this time, it wasn't just critics and comedians, it was fellow Netflix stars. comedian Katherine Ryan, who once spoke favorably about Meghan, flipped the script completely. She now called Meghan fake, manicured, and unrelatable. That wasn't shade, that was a takedown. And it hit hard because Katherine wasn't speaking from a place of malice, she was speaking from experience, from seeing how much effort Meghan puts into curating something that's supposed to be effortless. And she wasn't alone. Christina Pazitsky, another Netflix regular, echoed the same thing. Her words were harsher, overproduced, insulting, soulless. Even John Mulaney, the king of deadpan, took a jab during a comedy special. Netflix gave Harry and Meghan a blank check, he said. They just didn't ask what it was for. The crowd roared, but the message was loud and clear. This wasn't about one show flopping. This was about trust, about audiences feeling misled, about authenticity being sold as branding. Actually, scratch that. It was about more than branding. It was about the unraveling of a myth. Because Meghan's show didn't just fail to connect, it actively pushed people away. The very tone of the show, beige luxury, whispery narration, photo-ready motherhood, was so aggressively curated that it made viewers feel alienated, not inspired. And worse, it made them feel manipulated. People didn't walk away thinking, I want to be like her. They walked away thinking, does she even believe this herself? And here's where Bill Maher struck again, this time not with jokes, but with observation. In a roundtable discussion, he asked, why is Meghan always trying to sell us something she doesn't seem to live? He pointed out that every new version of her, royal rebel, podcast guru, lifestyle goddess, seems less about passion and more about optics. And when you keep switching masks, eventually, people stop trying to guess who's underneath. That comment sparked a storm of commentary online. Reddit threads exploded. YouTubers went deep dive mode. TikTok creators started splicing clips of Meghan's early interviews, where she talked about independence and privacy against her current soft-focus branding campaign. The contradictions piled up, and fans weren't angry. They were disillusioned because they realized they hadn't been following a person, they'd been following a persona. But hold on, because there's more. Amid the backlash, Meghan quietly launched a new product line, lifestyle goods under her rebranded As Ever label. But even that move backfired. One of the featured items was a jam jar designed with royal-style calligraphy, and that tiny detail sparked a legal headache. Multiple outlets began reporting that the branding bore striking resemblance to official royal insignia, something Meghan, having stepped away from royal duties, technically shouldn't be using. That small label kicked off a wave of questions. Was she still using her royal ties to sell products? Was the crown she once criticized now her marketing gimmick? Suddenly, it wasn't just about a bad show. It was about image manipulation, about blurred lines between personal brand and public deception. And this is when the backlash became something darker, because Meghan's critics weren't just mocking her anymore. They were accusing her of weaponizing identity, of exploiting empathy, of staging emotion. And just when it seemed like the storm might pass, another wave hit, this time tied to the show's set design. A prominent set decorator anonymously revealed that Meghan's kitchen wasn't even functional. That's right, the stove didn't work. The fruit wasn't real, the food was swapped out between takes because it spoiled too quickly under the lights. What viewers thought was real life. It was a showroom, a mirage, a literal stage setup to sell a fantasy of domestic warmth Meghan never intended to live. The revelation didn't just confirm what critics suspected, it validated every parody, every roast, every TikTok teardown that called the show a fraud. And here's where everything converged. Netflix, the press, the audience, the insiders, all realizing the same thing at the same time. Meghan's brand wasn't crumbling. It was being held together with duct tape and denial. Her image had become so carefully protected, so tightly managed, that when reality tried to poke through, it was met with silence or spin. And now, even her silence was being weaponized. Every no comment, every pulled appearance, every subtle dodge in interviews felt like another crack in the foundation. And then came the final twist, an internal leak from Netflix. An executive allegedly told a reporter that Meghan's show was the most expensive identity crisis we've ever filmed. That quote spread like wildfire. Within hours, it was picked up by blogs, turned into memes, and stitched into reaction videos with captions like, "Ouch, even Netflix is over it." And just like that, the second season, already filmed, already edited, was now hanging in limbo, a glossy, sun-drenched question mark, waiting to see if the public will bite again. The fallout wasn't just professional, it was personal. Meghan Markle didn't just lose credibility with critics, she lost something far more valuable, narrative control. For years, she had built her image as a woman breaking the mold, escaping the rigid formality of royalty to build a new life on her own terms. But with Love, Meghan, she accidentally revealed something else entirely. Someone still obsessed with presentation, approval, and applause. Someone who couldn't stop curating, even when the world begged for something real. And the effect rippled far beyond one failed show. According to insiders close to the production, tension between Meghan and the Netflix team began well before the premiere. One former contractor alleged she pushed for creative approval on everything, including lighting direction, color palettes, and even guest seating. It wasn't a shoot, they said. It was a shrine. Everything had to make her look like the new Martha Stewart, the new Oprah, the new Gwyneth, but softer. And the moment something didn't match the fantasy, it was cut. But here's where it gets really wild. While Meghan's team was scrambling to preserve the fantasy, Prince Harry was reportedly growing uneasy behind the scenes. Sources from within Netflix suggest Harry never wanted to be a part of the cooking series in the first place. He saw it as off-brand, according to one senior exec. In early cuts of the show, Harry appeared in more scenes, chopping vegetables, laughing at Meghan's jokes, playing with their kids in the background. But in the final edit, he was mostly invisible, removed. Why? Speculation ranges from creative differences to Harry himself pulling back once he saw how stylized the series had become. And now, with the backlash in full swing, even his team is distancing themselves from the project entirely, which brings us to the bigger picture. Because this isn't just about one show, one roast, or one flop. It's about the collapse of a strategy, one that tried to merge Hollywood storytelling with royal mystique and Silicon Valley branding. And now, that Frankenstein identity is falling apart. Meghan's pivot from royalty to lifestyle guru wasn't graceful, it was desperate. Every move she's made since has felt like overcompensation, overcorrecting from past scandals with forced warmth and factory-produced vulnerability. But here's the problem with curating imperfection. It still isn't real, and viewers are tired of being sold curated pain. They're exhausted from being asked to cry on command and clap for privilege dressed up as struggle. And that's exactly why Bill Maher's roast hit so hard, because he didn't just make fun of Meghan's cooking skills, he exposed the bigger truth. This is a woman addicted to managing perception, terrified of showing anything messy unless it's been airbrushed first. But the fallout didn't stop with Bill. Comedians like Nikki Glaser, Whitney Cummings, and even Trevor Noah began joking about Meghan's jam empire on stage. Podcasts picked up the story, Reddit threads turned into digital bonfires of speculation, mockery, and conspiracy theories. Some fans even began wondering aloud if Meghan's entire image, down to her most publicized hobbies, was built by consultants. The comment that kept surfacing? Who is Meghan Markle when no one's watching? And that's the scariest question of all, because every version of her we've been given, from actress to duchess to podcaster to homemaker, has come with a launch campaign. A logo, a title card, a PR rollout, never a moment to just be. And now that her audience is demanding something real, she seems unsure of how to deliver, because maybe she doesn't know either. That tension is starting to show everywhere. Meghan's recent interviews are shorter, more guarded, her public appearances have decreased, even her team has changed strategies, shifting toward fashion and luxury branding instead of home life. Why? Because fashion, unlike family, doesn't require vulnerability. It's image over emotion. You can't be canceled for picking the wrong jam flavor, but you can for pretending you know how to make one from scratch. And that brings us to the heart of this whole disaster. Authenticity. It's not something you can brand. It's not something you can schedule between hair and makeup. And once the audience senses it's missing, they leave. Fast. Meghan's mistake wasn't making a lifestyle show. It was pretending it was personal while keeping it completely performative. She invited the world into her home, but made them wait at the velvet rope. She gave us a seat at the table, but nothing on the plate was real. And now, even Netflix seems to regret the invite, which leads us to the most uncomfortable twist of all. Meghan Markle may have finally hit the limit of public reinvention, because when you've burned through every archetype, rebel, royal, victim, visionary, homemaker, what's left? What do you become when no one buys the story anymore? According to insiders, Meghan's team is now quietly exploring new content directions, fashion editorials, luxury skincare branding, a possible fragrance, all things that look polished on the outside but require no emotional risk, and maybe that's the future she wants now, one where everything is filtered, curated, and safe. But for a woman who built her empire on the promise of realness, that future feels hollow, Because here's the thing, the world didn't turn on Meghan because she changed. It turned because she pretended she didn't, because she sold vulnerability in a box, and it turned out to be empty. And in a culture that craves connection, that kind of bait and switch doesn't just disappoint, it infuriates. So what does this all mean? It means Meghan Markle is no longer just a public figure. She's a brand in crisis, a reputation dangling between reinvention and irrelevance. And unless something changes, unless she finds a way to be real, unscripted, and unguarded, this won't just be a PR hiccup. It'll be the moment her story stopped evolving and started unraveling. Let's talk about what really accelerated Meghan's downfall: the internet. Because while critics, insiders, and comedians played their part, it was social media that turned her Netflix show from a quiet flop into a cultural firestorm. On TikTok, creators didn't just review the show, they reenacted it, parodied it, stitched it, and memed it to death. Clips of Meghan carefully placing jam jars beside faux rustic placemats became viral punchlines. One creator pretended to host their own With Love segment using dollar store snacks and a deadpan delivery. It got 3 million views in 48 hours. Not because it was polished, but because it felt real. That's the cruel irony. In trying so hard to seem perfect, Meghan became the punchline for every imperfect creator trying to break through with authenticity. And while her curated lifestyle aesthetic was being mocked in real time, those who showed their actual chaos, their messy kitchens, their loud kids, their cheap groceries, were going viral. Suddenly, Meghan's version of relatable felt elitist, disconnected, unattainable. In a world where authenticity is currency, her show looked like Monopoly money. And it didn't stop with TikTok. Twitter was even more brutal. Hashtags like #WithLoveCringe and #DuchessDisaster trended more than once. Threads dissected every second of the show, pulling side-by-side receipts of Meghan's reused Pinterest content, her questionable cooking methods, and even her changing accent across episodes. Why does she start in Montecito and end in Mid-Atlantic boarding school? One tweet joked. Others pointed out how even the sound design felt fake, like someone added ambient child laughter over scenes that had no kids present. The vibe? Less cozy family gathering, more PR hostage tape. And while the internet was laughing, people inside the industry were talking, quietly, nervously, because if Meghan, arguably one of the most famous women in the world, couldn't control the narrative with millions in backing, what did that mean for everyone else? One entertainment publicist told a trade blog, "This was supposed to be the safest rebrand ever. Soft lighting, soft themes, soft power," and it detonated. Another Netflix executive speaking off the record said, "We thought we were buying heartwarming content. What we got was a masterclass in audience alienation." Even Oprah, yes, Oprah, has reportedly pulled back. Sources close to the mogul say she's distancing herself from further collaborations, not out of malice, but out of brand protection. Oprah built her empire on trust, on connection. And in the wake of Meghan's lifestyle disaster, there's concern that too much association could muddy that. It's not personal, it's business. But for Meghan, it's devastating. So where does she go from here? Well, if you ask her team, the answer is forward. Always forward. More products, more brand extensions, possibly a new podcast focused on modern feminine leadership. But here's the thing, unless the tone shifts, unless the walls come down, the audience won't follow, because the trust has already been broken. And once trust is gone, so is the platform it gave you. You can't preach vulnerability while delivering a performance. You can't sell empowerment while staging every scene to look effortless. You can't call it with love and then package it like a showroom. And most of all, you can't underestimate your audience, because that's what really brought the backlash. Not the jam, not the beige kitchen, not even the bad acting. It was the assumption that no one would notice, that the viewers wouldn't see the set walls, wouldn't clock the reused content, wouldn't care that the food was fake and the vibe was forced. Meghan bet on the fantasy, but in 2025, the audience is betting on the truth. And that's a bet she wasn't prepared to lose. Now, here's where it gets even more personal. Remember her rebrand to As Ever? It wasn't just a new name. It was a coded message, a reference to how Meghan used to sign handwritten letters to fans, "As ever, Meghan." A phrase meant to suggest consistency, timelessness. But here's the tragic twist. Nothing about her brand has been consistent. It's shifted from activist to royal to podcast host to domestic queen to fashion hopeful, each version more curated than the last. And now, that little phrase, "As ever," feels like one last attempt to convince the world she hasn't changed, when everyone watching knows she has, over and over, and the public is catching on. Commentators are comparing her to other overproduced personalities of the past. Gwyneth Paltrow during the early Goop days, Jessica Alba's transition into beauty mogul mode, even Martha Stewart before her prison-era rebrand. But here's the difference. Those women made mistakes, public ones, and they owned them. Meghan's flaw isn't ambition, it's denial. She keeps telling the world who she is while acting like someone else entirely. And the more she does, the less people believe her. So what happens now? We're at a crossroads. Season 2 of With Love, Meghan is complete, edited, and locked in Netflix's content vault. The question is, will they release it or bury it? Meghan's team is likely weighing the same options. Do they lean into the backlash, pretend it was satire all along? Do they push forward with new products, hoping time will heal public memory? Or do they pull back, recalibrate, and try, finally, to speak without the script? The truth? It may already be too late, because in the age of algorithm and attention, once the audience sees behind the curtain, they rarely come back. Meghan had a shot at reinvention, a powerful one. She could have told the real story, about breaking free, about finding identity after royalty, about healing. But instead, she gave us a beige fantasy wrapped in PR language and fake smiles. And that's the one thing people can't forgive. Not being fake, but pretending not to be. Because in Hollywood, you can survive scandal. You can survive flops. You can even survive being hated. But you can't survive being irrelevant. And if Meghan doesn't change course soon, that's exactly where she's headed. And you've probably seen the headlines. But now you know what really happened behind the scenes. The story Netflix didn't want to tell. The meltdown hidden behind the fruit parfaits. The branding spiral disguised as empowerment. And the roast that didn't just humiliate Meghan, it revealed her. The real question now isn't whether the public will forgive her. It's whether Meghan Markle ever truly knew who she was without the cameras rolling. Because once the masks fall, who's left standing?